Welcome to this recording of the desire that satisfies all desires. This inspiring discourse was originally delivered by Paramahansa Yogananda at the Self-Realization Fellowship International Headquarters in Los Angeles, California, on October 26, 1939. We are honored to share his divine insights and timeless wisdom with you today. The glory of God is great. He is real, and he can be found in this life. In men's hearts, there are many prayers for money, fame, health, prayers for all manner of things. But the prayer that should be first in every heart is the prayer for God's presence. Silently and surely, as you walk on the path of life, you must come to the realization that God is the only object, the only goal that will satisfy you, for in God lies the answer to every desire of the heart. When you have found it impossible to fulfill some urgent wish by your own effort, you turn to God in prayer. Thus, every prayer that you utter represents a desire. But when you find God, all desires vanish, and there is no need for prayer. I don't pray. That may seem a strange thing to say, but when the object of your prayer is with you all the time, you no longer have need to pray. In fulfillment of the wish or prayer for Him lies joy eternal. Material desires come through certain mistaken conceptions about the purpose of life. This earth is not our home. The scriptures have told us we are children of God, made in His image, and that it is the will of the divine that we return to our source. What man does not realize is that unless and until he goes back to the source, back to God, he will have to struggle to fulfill endless desires. Reflect on that. Man cannot help having desires, and it is not a sin to have them. But most human longings hamper fulfillment of the supreme desire to return to God, hence they are detrimental to man's happiness. Until he wants and has God, man will continue to long for whatever else he believes will make him happy. But to him who has God, instant fulfillment of all desires comes automatically. There are two classes of desires: those that help us to find God, and those that obstruct our finding Him. For example, if someone hits you, you want to retaliate. But if you overcome that desire by using the superior power of love, you have applied the action that will help you to find God. All desires should be satisfied in the divine way. When you try to satisfy them in the worldly way, you only multiply your difficulties. If you learn to give every desire to God, He will see to it that your good desires are fulfilled and the harmful ones are overcome. There is no protection greater than your conscience and the divine quality of your good desires. If you but looked at your soul, the all-perfect reflection of God within you, you would find all your desires satisfied. In that divine consciousness, having which no other gain is greater, you would be unmoved even if the whole world were given to you. Neither would praise elate you, nor blame hurt. You would feel only the great joy of God within. Always seek the guidance of the divine in trying to fulfill your legitimate desires, because that is the supreme way to receive the answers to all your prayers. But one thing you must remember: cut out begging from your prayer. Change your old attitude of supplication. You should pray to God intimately as His child, which you are. God does not object when you pray from your ego as a stranger and a beggar, but you will find that your efforts are limited by that consciousness. God does not want you to give up your own willpower, which is your divine birthright as His child. Naturally, one should distinguish between reasonable and unreasonable prayers or desires. And bear in mind that once you have made this discrimination, whatever good or bad desires you hold on to are bound to be fulfilled. If you cling to any evil desires, they will be granted, and you will find out what harm and unhappiness they cause. As time goes on, you will realize that even though your wish was fulfilled, your heart is still not satisfied. You will feel something within you rebelling. For example, suppose you have weak digestion, yet you want to eat fried foods. Not surprisingly, you suffer every time you do. Although you feel delight while fulfilling that desire, the after effect is pain. Thus, you are made aware that you have done wrong. It is wiser to use discrimination to separate your evil desires from your good ones, and having done so, to avoid the fulfillment of those wrong desires. Learn to be guided by your conscience, the divine discriminative power within you. Unfulfilled desires remain in the heart. And what is the harm in harboring them? It is this: every desire consists of specific forces, either good or evil, or a mixture of both. And when you die, though your body is gone, those forces do not die. As mental tabloids, they follow your soul wherever it goes, and when you are reborn, these tabloids manifest as behavioral tendencies. Thus, a person who has died an alcoholic brings with him the tendency to alcoholism when he is reborn, and it remains with him until he overcomes desire for alcohol. The behavior of even the smallest child reveals certain characteristics of past lives. Some children have terrible temper tantrums, others are moody. God did not make them that way. Unfulfilled desires of past lives fashion those psychological tendencies, and, because of them, the soul, even though made in the image of God, appears as something different. If the image of God within you is distorted in this life by anger or fear, and you do not conquer such uncharacteristic qualities now, you will be reborn with them, and you will have the burden of these misery-creating tendencies until you overcome them in some future incarnation. It is better, therefore, to work out or overcome all your desires now. They would be finished immediately and for all time in the supreme joy of God's presence. But until you know Him, your unconquered desires will remain to hound you. There are two ways of finishing your desires: by realizing, through reason and discrimination, or wisdom, that only God can give permanent, unalloyed happiness, and by fulfillment. In many cases, desires lie hidden within the subconscious. You think they are finished, but they are not. Life is indeed a great mystery, but the mystery clears away when you dissect life with the scalpel of reason. If every day you sit quietly for a little while and analyze yourself, you will discover that you have many unsatisfied desires. They are like dangerous germs that you carry through life, and wherever you go, in this life or the next, they will go with you. The best course is to do away with all dangerous desires in this life, by discrimination, and to concentrate on fulfilling your good desires. If you feel drawn to commit suicide or to do something evil, get rid of such desires now. Convince yourself, by reason and by good actions, that you are a child of God, made in His image, and rise above your moods and bodily habits. Be more detached. In this way you will conquer. If you suffer from a chronic ailment, try mentally to separate yourself from the consciousness of the body. By discrimination, you can conquer the senses. Discrimination is the fire that burns up desire. It is a general practice to store in the attic all of one's unwanted, unnecessary junk, and once in a while to have a good house cleaning. Similarly, hidden away in the attic of your subconscious mind are many potentially harmful desires that one day may give you great trouble. It is important, therefore, to analyze yourself. Perhaps you are a hateful or moody or angry type of person. If so, these stored traits are the result of your own past behavior. In order to clean out your mental attic of such unwanted furnishings, you must vigorously employ constructive, positive, loving action. Suppose that even though an old enemy dies, you continue to feel hatred toward him. In time, that bitterness will produce ill effects in your own body and mind. It is better to concentrate on trying to behold God in your enemy, for by doing so, you release yourself from evil, vengeful desires that destroy your peace of mind. By heaping hatred upon hatred, or giving hate in return for hate, you not only increase your enemy's hostility toward you, you poison your system, physically as well as emotionally, with your own venom. Conscience will tell you what you are. Sometimes one feels a desire to take it easy. This is not wrong. To get away from everything now and then gives a person a chance to think what life is all about. Most people are floating along on the current of custom and fashion. They have never actually lived their own life. They have lived the life of the world, and where has it gotten them? So it is wise now and then to remove yourself from everyday considerations, to calm your mind and try to understand what kind of person you are and what kind of person you want to be. And remember, the truest testimony you can find is the testimony of your own conscience, the discriminative voice of the soul. Whatever your conscience says, that is what you are. Think of the power of the conscience of Jesus. His accusers spat upon him and crucified him, and yet he said, "Father, forgive them." That kind of discrimination is the only power that will bring light on your path. Whenever there is an overwhelming desire in your heart to pray for a certain thing, use your discrimination. Ask yourself, is it a good desire or a bad desire for which I seek fulfillment? There are many influences that nourish desire in you. When you see a new model car, you want one. When you see a new model house, you want one. Some new style of apparel comes out, and immediately you yearn to wear that fashion. Whence do these desires come? I used to sit for hours pondering this. Can you classify all your desires? I sorted mine and kept only the good ones, and when I had the contact of God, I found all those good desires at once fulfilled. Today you wish for one thing, and tomorrow you hanker after something else. Your mind, having descended from Almighty God, is not satisfied with the offerings of this world, and it will never be satisfied because you have lost your soul's richest treasure, which alone can satisfy all your desires, and that is God. It is true there are some good and necessary desires, and you should strive to fulfill them. But never forget, while pursuing your little desires, to satisfy first your supreme desire, for God. Belief in the necessity of fulfilling lesser desires and duties first is man's greatest delusion. I well remember that during my training as a young disciple of my guru, Swami Sri Ishwarji, I kept promising myself daily, I will meditate longer tomorrow. A whole year slipped by before I realized that I was still putting it off. At once, I made a resolution that first thing in the morning, I would clean my body and then meditate long. But even then, as soon as I stirred about, I became caught up in my daily duties and activities. Thereupon, I resolved to have my meditation first. Thus, I learned a great lesson. First comes my duty to God, and then I take care of all lesser duties. Why not? God says, "Why should I open the doors of eternity to you when you put other duties before me? If you are not soaring to the heights of spirit, of what account are you? You have nothing to offer God or man. So seek Him first. To give more importance to your earthly duties is false reasoning, because at any moment the angel Gabriel may call you. At any moment you may be taken away from here. Why then give so much importance to life? For life is very peculiar. You think you are quite secure. Suddenly a loved one dies, or you lose your health, and all security vanishes. How I loved my mother and thought she would be with me always, and suddenly I found she was gone. Don't be afraid of death, but be prepared for it. Life is not what it seems to be. Don't trust it, for it is very tricky and full of disappointments. Perfection was not meant to be found here. I am not giving you a false picture of life. This is not the kingdom of God. It is God's laboratory, where He is testing souls to see if they will overcome evil desires by good ones and make Him their supreme desire so they can return home to His kingdom. Life is full of tragedy and comedy, a kaleidoscope of infinite variety. No two things are the same. Everyone's life is individual. Each person has a different kind of face, a different kind of mind and desires. We would become bored if we had exactly the same experiences every day. We would soon tire of life. Were heaven itself the same every day, we wouldn't want it. We enjoy variety. The stereotyped conception of heaven is all wrong. If it were boring, all the saints would pray to come back to earth for a little change. Heaven is something infinitely different, ever pleasantly new, whereas earth is often unpleasantly new. Yet, no matter how trying life is, most people become accustomed to it and assume there is no other way to live. Not being able to compare this life with the spiritual life, they do not realize how painful and boring earthly living is. Actually, life is not real, it is only an entertainment. And just as old movies are shown over and over, so basically the same old incidents occur and recur in life. And although life will go on eternally, the same themes depicted in past films will be portrayed again and again. It is true that history repeats itself. We are all museum pieces. Whatever comes in life, just take it joyfully, impersonally, as you would a motion picture. Life is entertaining when we do not take it too seriously. A good laugh is an excellent remedy for human ills. One of the best characteristics of the American people is their ability to laugh. To be able to laugh at life is marvelous. This my master, Swami Sri Ishwar, taught me. In the beginning of my training in his hermitage, I went about with a solemn face, never smiling. One day, Master pointedly remarked, "What is this? Are you attending a funeral ceremony? Don't you know that finding God is the funeral of all sorrows? Then why so glum? Don't take this life too seriously." He taught me that one must be mentally above every crucifixion of earthly experience in order to find complete happiness in God. even-minded during happiness and sorrow, profit and loss, triumph and failure, so encounter the battle of life. Thus thou wilt not acquire sin. To remain even-minded, no matter what comes, is one of the best ways to conquer delusive desires. This I learned from the example of my great master, even to the last, changeless. Christ also demonstrated that spirit. Even though Jesus was tortured, God's love was not taken away. He did not lose his divine consciousness. God's protection of our joy and peace is the greatest fortress possible. Throughout all trials and sufferings, remember the good things that God has given you. Your soul is a divine temple of God. The darkness of mortal ignorance and limitations must be driven out of that temple. It is wonderful to be in the consciousness of the soul, fortified, strong. Be afraid of nothing, hating none, giving love to all, feeling the love of God, seeing his presence in everyone, and having but one desire, for his constant presence in the temple of your consciousness. That is the way to live in this world. Those who have other desires will not know true satisfaction. Environment shapes our desires. Desires are formed according to one's environment. They are created by, and therefore limited by, your sense perceptions. Attending a country fair satisfies a desire for a little excitement, but after you have been to a world fair and viewed all the different exhibits, a small fair no longer holds any attraction. This illustrates the importance of having communion with God now, for the comparison with inferior earthly joys. Then your desires will be of a much higher and more advanced nature. The desire to be one with God is the greatest of all. When you are through with any lesser desire, you soon pick up another. But when you have God, all other desires are satisfied completely. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Why not fulfill first this highest desire? For when he answers your prayer to know him, all other desires will be instantly fulfilled throughout eternity. Perhaps you feel that you have no desires. Well, I have often noticed what happens when people go shopping. They may have no particular desire to buy, but suddenly something catches their eye and they think, I must have it. Day and night, that object is on their mind, and finally they buy it, even if they have to borrow the money. Then, after having it for a while, their happiness in it grows stale, and they want something else. We meet people who say, if only I could have $1,000, or a car, or a swimming pool, and when that wish is satisfied, they yearn for something different. Human desires are not perfect, hence their fulfillment does not lead to perfect happiness. The world environment will try to prevent you from remembering that the only worthwhile desire is to have God. But every day you should remind yourself of this. And when you have made up your mind not to smoke or eat unwisely or lie or cheat, be firm in these good desires. Don't weaken. Wrong environment saps your will and invites wrong desires. Live with thieves and you think that is the only life. But live with divine persons, and after having divine communion, no other desires can tempt you. All become stale. Therefore, even a few moments of deep meditation or the company of a saint will be a raft of inspiration to carry you across this ocean of delusion to the shores of God. Be safe in the castle of God's presence. Joy lies in continually thinking of God. The longing for him should be constant. A time comes when your mind never wanders away, when not even the greatest affliction of body, mind, and soul can take your consciousness from the living presence of God. Is that not wonderful? To live and think and feel God all the time? To remain in the castle of his presence, whence death nor aught else can take you away? On me fix thy mind, be thou my devotee, with ceaseless worship bow reverently before me. Having thus united thyself to me as thy highest goal, thou shalt be mine own. When you are proof against all desires, you are enjoying the presence eternal. This life is strange. Everything is subject to change. That is why one should not anchor his happiness on this life. Our time will pass on. What you are seeing now will be gone one day. Change is good if you don't let it hurt you. When it does hurt, the rebellion you feel is meant to show you that you should not have any desires. When you are anchored in that great spirit, you are enjoying everything, but without attachment. Therefore, it is worthwhile to make the effort to know him. Otherwise, life can horribly disillusion you. When I went back to India in 1935, I was looking forward to visiting some of the places I had enjoyed as a child, but upon my arrival, I saw everything had changed. The stage was differently set. The greatest disillusionment came to me when I visited my old home in Ichapur, where I used to play and watch the birds. I was shocked. Only one remembered tree was left. That is the way life is. One by one, things familiar and dear vanish from our sight. I would have given anything then to have seen our home as it was in my childhood. Nevertheless, I did see it later, materialized in a vision. We swam in the pond, and I went upstairs in the house and lay on the bed and ate mangoes, as I had done so many years before. Scrutinize your desires carefully now. Sort them and keep only good ones, and let not even those good desires choke off the one important desire, for God. That must not be stifled. You are in great delusion when you ask God for fulfillment of your earthly desires and never ask Him to make a gift of Himself to you. What would you think of a son who says, "Mother, write a check for me," whenever he wants anything, but otherwise gives no thought to her? Don't be like that. Never be ungrateful. When this book of life shall be closed, there will remain with you only the realization gained from those desires you have fulfilled in connection with God. So read from whispers and then meditate before you go to bed each night. When you wake up, think of God. Pray not only before taking food, but when you are eating and afterward. When you are working, weave the thought of God around that activity. When you are in touch with God, you will see all your desires mysteriously fulfilled, but you must seek Him first. He has given you everything, but only if you forsake all His gifts, preferring Him, will He surrender Himself. When you show God that you are willing to sacrifice everything to know Him, He will come to you. The hardest obstacle to overcome is yourself. When you sit to meditate at night, your nervousness and restlessness are still with you. Learn to control your mind and body. Be king of yourself. Carry within you a portable heaven, and in life or in death, in heaven or in Hades, that inner heaven will be with you. Pray deeply, sincerely, "O God, I yearn to know you. You must answer me." And next morning, pray again, "Lord, you must come to me." And pray again the next night in the same way, in the language of your heart. If you keep on, He must respond. But when you pray half-heartedly, while thinking in the back of your mind about something else, He knows He is not first with you and He does not respond. Have God first. Have God now. Don't wait, because delusion is very strong. Before you know it, the time will have come for you to quit this world. Whenever you have a moment, sit down and meditate. No matter how many times your prayers have not been answered, don't worry. Keep on praying. Pray with sincerity. Believe that your prayer is answered. In my life, I have seen the most wonderful demonstrations of God's response to prayer. I urge you to pray not for little things, but for His presence. Only that prayer is worthwhile. If you are willing to sacrifice an hour or two of sleep for meditation every night, you will enter the kingdom of God. Don't watch the time. With deep sincerity pray, "Lord, I want you alone." Bad habits and restlessness will try to shake you from your effort, but keep your mind on God and you will find His presence with you. Desires for worldly joys create the magnetic attraction that draws man back to earth, life after life. Reincarnation is no longer necessary for those who have fulfilled their desires in God. Whenever they want to fulfill any wish, they simply think of that object and it is materialized before them. My mother appeared before me in flesh and blood, just as I see you here. How kind is God! How marvelous is God! That He materializes the objects of our desires to show us His love and gratefulness when we have given Him first place in our hearts. To be able to demonstrate health or wealth or power or friends with God's help is fine, but if you can coax God Himself to respond to your prayers, you are a man of destiny. So don't rest until you demonstrate God in your life. He will give you everything you ever wished for, and He will test you. The tests in the spiritual life are greater than in any other, but you who pass His tests shall say, "Lord, my greatest prayer has been answered. What else could my heart want or need but you?"